Hello, hello. Welcome to Virtual Book Club. The book club where you don't need to read to join the club. And I think last week we were saying that you don't even have to wear pants if you don't want. That made me giggle. Welcome. If it's your first time, it's a book club. It started in October of 2020 during the global pandemic. I'm Benita Lee, and I'm joined by different guests all over the continent today to discuss books that we've read or haven't read and connect with others or share thoughts and tell stories. So join us. Don't forget to say hi or where you're tuning in from because we like to see, how far our reach is. Today, I am joined by Hal Garin, Leslie Neidig, Carissa Pilster.
I'm gonna fix my.
Okay. Maybe it's got blur on and it doesn't know that it's supposed to unblur the person.
Exactly. Um, I'm gonna go leave the studio and come back because then I can fix it. So I'll be
Sure.
back in a moment. Sorry.
Okay, no problem at all. Um, so that's the thing with Virtual Book Club. All um, it's all live and there's no edits. It'll be good one day when I figure out how to do clips, because then I can take like our bloopers, our funniest conversations, and have them all in one video. But we're not there yet. Where we are is reading. I don't know. Is it our? It's probably our eighth. It might be our eighth business book of the year. I'm not sure how many we've had this year. Hal?
I could give me a minute and I'll answer that question, but it seems like we have been averaging one a
A book
month.
a month? Yeah, so this is quite potentially our eighth book of the year, and it's called Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as If Your Life Depended on It. It's by Chris Voss, a former FBI hostage negotiator, and he does it with a business writer, Tal Ross, who apparently is very famous for helping authors that aren't authors to begin with uh, write their thoughts into business books. So I found it really easy to read, and I learned a lot from it. And I was kind of like caught up in the stories that he used as examples because they were so exciting. It felt like I was reading the script of a movie, but it's real life.
Yeah, I have to wonder how someone in a job like that. So think about no matter how good you are, I'm horrible at it, but no matter how good you are at controlling your inner voice and, you know, being able to stay calm in high stress situations. Think about being the lead negotiator on a hostage situation that goes multiple days. I mean, how do you go home and go to sleep? I mean,
No
you
kidding.
don't go on for days and days. You turn it over, you take breaks, you let other people handle, that you trust, and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, in a situation like that, and then even with an extremely positive outcome, how do you calm down afterwards?
Right. I'd be
I mean,
so
it's,
amped.
I'm in awe of people who do that. I mean, I was thinking about, just drawing a parallel, not related to this, but, I endured, and that is the word I should use, endured watching the Republican debate last night. Because it was over well past my old guy dead bedtime. And, but I was thinking, okay, after it's over and then they go do their little press interviews, and all that stuff, and then maybe the party afterwards and all that. How do they turn it off without doing the I should have said? Boy, I don't like my answer to that question. I mean, that replay it over and over and over in your head.
It's very hard. I think everyone has to come up with their way. Certainly when it's like life on the line, it seems like it might be more difficult, but it probably takes the exact same skills. Because I can think of times that I've had to make decisions for other people or negotiate it where it was like life and death questions, not a kidnapping or the kind of things that he described. But it really did take the same skills. And sometimes it was easier to turn it off because I wanted to turn it off more. As weird as that sounds.
Yeah.
I want to say it's, you can't overthink anything. I mean, you can definitely go and learn from things, but I think if you go back and start overthinking mistakes, it's going to be, I mean, you could do that forever. I mean, you could look at every decision you made, but, I think some people don't even go back and watch replays of themselves, because they don't want to be overthinking it. They'll avoid, maybe just get some highlights from it, but then stop there. Like, because you could watch something over and over. I mean, anybody, especially when you get to that level, I mean, if you make a mistake on something, it's like, where did I make that mistake? What did I do? Or you don't get, I mean, a job interview, you don't get a job. I mean, where did you go wrong? Like, what didn't you say? I mean, you can analyze it so much, but at some point you fall down a rabbit hole and, you're going to get depressed and not dig yourself out of it. So it's,
Sure.
yeah, I think you have to be cautious about that.
Other than David Goggins, who plays tapes of people, dissing him because it motivates him, right?
Right. That was our last book, Carissa. It was called Never Finished, and David Goggins would take the haters' comments off his social media and play it back to himself to push him, to motivate
It's a
him.
source of motivation.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think
It is that.
But you're talking
Sorry,
about life.
Go ahead.
Too. So it's, I mean, I could see that where it's like haters and critiques and things like that. I mean, I don't know if I'd do it over and over. It's just too much of a rabbit hole. You have to have a right personality for it too. So.
Sure.
What were you going to say, Leslie, about that? About David Goggins and his...
Now I honestly lost my thoughts, so it couldn't be that important. Or my old brain is just not remembering. I'll remember it exactly when a minute after.
Right.
This
after this
event ends.
Of course. So the heading of the post that I put up was, getting to know instead of yes. And I just want to cover that briefly before we go into a chapter about one of the last chapters. Is instead of getting to yes, his advice was get to know, because when someone says no, then you understand what they really want, because they'll explain to you no, because, and when they tell you why that's not acceptable, then that's when you can really negotiate, because now you know what they want, like what's hidden behind the request.
It's like, well, getting to know will get you to yes.
Yes.
That final yes, not
Mhm.
the in-between yeses.
Right, because if they say yes right away, it
explain,
could be that
You're
when
setting
there's a yes
boundaries.
right away, it's usually not. I feel like that is a little bit like, yeah, okay,
I'm just done with this
if I
conversation.
say yes now, we can be done.
Yes.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
You're
wanna
setting
get to that
the
point.
boundaries there. When you have the boundaries, it's like, okay, I can only go this far this way. I can only go this far this way. Okay, now I know where the playing field's at.
Right.
Like you're starting a conversation. You don't know. It's like, here, you're gonna go out and you're gonna play this sport, but we're not gonna tell you where the lines of the field are at. And now you have to go play
Right.
and figure it out. And we have a referee out here, but we're not gonna, we're gonna decide, oh, now you're out of bounds. So making up the rules kind of as you go along, because some people know their boundaries right away and some people don't until you start asking them questions.
Mhm.
I think part of the difference too for me, as I've been thinking about it, is I think the concept behind, although it's broader than what I'm going to say, the concept behind getting the yes was more about sales.
Yes.
And the concept of this getting to know or understanding the no is more about true negotiation. You know, if I can understand the no's, I can limit the solution space to get to an acceptable answer for all parties.
Right.
I think you think I'm unfortunately, I guess I've got politics on the mind these days, so I apologize for another political example, but it's why gridlock exists in Washington to some degree, as opposed to understanding each party's no and limiting the solution space to, well, what can we agree upon here? They're just flinging the no's back and forth.
Right.
Unless it's on my terms, we're not going to move this forward, and so everybody's just sitting, not negotiating.
Have you seen the political ad? It's got the Colorado governor, and then it's got a Republican governor, and they sit there and talk about what we need to do to get to the middle.
I've not seen that.
I'll have to find it. I saw it the other day. I think I ran across it on TikTok or something where it popped up. But they basically have both of them sitting in the room saying, we need to find this middle ground that we can all negotiate. It's like, you need to be able to have empathy, to listen to others and hear what others have to say if we're going to get to the middle. So,
and I mean, that's the title of the book, Never Split the Difference. Is like compromises, and the middle, usually everybody loses.
Absolutely.
Like, instead of a
Then
win,
no one's happy. I don't think that's where, when someone says, oh, okay, we'll just compromise. No, then neither one of us are going to be satisfied. So that's why we have to dig deeper and, as he calls it, like, find the black swans, really understand. And I think that goes back to, this is where, I've read much more of the Getting to Yes book by William Ury, where it's all about these underlying interests. You can't just ask someone, what's your underlying interest? No one answers. They don't know. It's discovering what we don't know, or and assuming I don't know. I don't even know what I don't know is something he referred to. And I think that helps us find and dig deeper to the stuff we really want and what's going to help us, because those things we offer in our positions isn't really always what we want. It's still not getting us to a win-win.
Yeah. Hi, Vern.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Good. I was, just as always, just listening to comments. You would think that, splitting the difference would make everybody happy because everybody's getting a little bit of something as opposed to nothing at all. But that isn't the way that Chris advocates people negotiate. Just dig a little deeper and find out, where we're missing, what we're really looking for, and how can you, to negotiate fairly, I think is one way that it might be described. But it's a skill. It really is.
Yeah, I think you can. What I'm going to say sounds going to be opposite of what you were just saying, but I think it's really actually agreeing. I think you can split the difference on the things that aren't really all that important.
Okay.
But the thing that it's hard to get to are let's say Leslie and I are negotiating something. if I understand her non-negotiables and she understands my non-negotiables, and we can deal with that, then we can split the difference on a lot of other stuff to get to some agreement. The problem is we don't really understand what is non-negotiable in some people's mind in entering a negotiation or a discussion where there needs to be an outcome that, two parties with maybe competing interests or different interests have to come to an agreement.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, no.
what's hostage situation? I'll make this up as I go. What's non-negotiable for most hostage takers? I get out of this alive somehow.
Right.
Now there are the, people who will, do the suicide by cop stuff. I get all of that. But for the most part, what's non-negotiable is whatever I got out of, I get out of this thing somehow alive and I don't go to jail for it.
Right.
And for the negotiator, what's non-negotiable is, everybody gets out of this alive.
Right.
Everybody has to get out of this alive. I can't lose a life as a result of what's happening here. If you understand those are the non-negotiables, you can split the difference on everything. Are we going to meet the hostage taker's demands? Well, let's keep them talking. Maybe they're not reasonable. Maybe they are reasonable, and I could just go on, making stuff up about the example, talking about something I don't really know. But, to me, I'm trying to make the point about, that, you need to understand the non-negotiable parts to even understand if you can negotiate.
Yeah, no, I
It does become like that, but it's what's on the surface is still not always what it is. We can sit there, we might go like, hey, what works for me is let's just list our non-negotiables. And then we get stuck in those. And so just using caution with figuring it out is still something to dig deeper, because what someone will say are their 5 non-negotiables still might be a position and not really their non-negotiables. It's what they think are their non-negotiables.
It also depends on the pressure of the situation.
mhm.
course.
Hostage situation, you can't necessarily say, well, let's come back to this in a couple of days. Let's take a break, but let's say you're negotiating global climate accords. Well, let's pick this up at the next time we all get together in 6 months.
Yes.
I think what might be an interesting scenario where we as a group could be involved would be negotiating the next book.
Ooh. I like.
When you think about the possibilities, so we come up with 3 books, and then we choose from one of the 3. Well, why are we doing this, and how are we negotiating exactly how we're going to, what the next book is going to be about? How do we make that selection, and how does everyone feel about that particular book? Why would they want to read that one, or why wouldn't they want to read that one? Why should that be the next book? And just as a group, it would be interesting. I'm just, throwing it out there, to have that example.
I like it. Let's do that in the last 20 or 15 to 20 minutes of the
So
of
do we
the
have
call.
hard nose on which books? Are we thinking of our hard nose of what books we're not going to do?
Yeah, the non-negotiable. I'm not looking. I'm not even interested in that. Won't even consider it. No. Mm-mm.
That would be like if somebody suggested another Brene Brown book for me. That would be a hard no.
See?
You have to know
You know
some
what
of the
Hal's
history.
spot is,
You have
okay?
to know
It's
some of the
like,
history on that
I'm
one.
not.
Yeah, Hal
No.
doesn't do Brene Brown books.
I reluctantly did one, and
Yeah, no, I was
that was
wow,
more than enough for me.
that was a
I mean,
proud moment.
maybe we set a rule of never the same. We won't do the same author twice.
Oh,
Okay.
so
That could
we've
be a
already,
hard no. Never
you know,
repeat an
the
author
book
you've done before.
the book club started.
See, now I would say, that I would make exceptions to that. For example, with a Simon Sinek, but that's just my.
Yeah, we've done 3 Simon Sinek books.
Wow.
The first virtual book club book ever was The Infinite Game.
I feel like sometimes I've tried listening to his stuff that like over the years, and it feels like sometimes he starts to repeat like some of his things. And Brene does the same thing too. They kind of regurgitate and give it to you in a different form. And it's like, well, if you get to the heart of it, it's all the same thing that they're trying to say the same thing, which is, it's a great mission. I mean, it's a great statement, but it starts to be repetitive if you catch it.
Yeah, no, it's a great business model.
It also begs the question, how do we select the books, and in what particular areas should we have interest? Because we've pretty much gone the gamut within business, but now are we willing to step out of that to something that's a little bit different, still within business and so forth? We like to be able to walk away and say, I've learned something that I can use in my life.
Yeah.
That seems to be, we like to
I
be,
would like that for all of us. And it sounds like you have one in mind that you'd like to discuss, Vern.
Actually, no. And not as we speak. There isn't a book that I would that comes to mind. Given some time, I could probably come up with. But that, this was just like off the cuff. As a thought that crossed my mind. We're talking about negotiations. What is something that we could all be involved in, because we all have a stake in this?
Yes, we do. We all give up an hour of our week.
Yeah.
I don't consider it giving up. This is energizing and fulfilling. It's probably one of my favorite.
So, what would be something that we would all be interested in? Maybe, well, because it's kind of just off the cuff, maybe we should come back let's put this on hold for right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but next week, know that we're all going to be coming up with a book that we recommend, and be able to give 2 or 3 talking points as to why we find this book to be so interesting. And then, we can all take a vote and decide, well, no, we're not, this is Brene Brown. We ain't going there. We know how Hal feels. No, we're not going there with that. We've already seen Simon Sinek, and no, we're not. Let's find something different. I mean, we just look at it that way. Put the negotiation skills that we think that we've gleaned from Chris Voss into practice.
I like it.
Because I would say that probably everyone here outside of me right now has a book in mind that, I think we should talk about this particular book. We should read this. We should find out, get into this one a little bit more.
Okay. Well, before you go too far, we've already picked the book for September.
Okay. Well, we got what, October?
We would negotiate the one for October, and which is like, it's it'll be good for everyone to get their thoughts in, and for us to negotiate it as a group, because October is really when fall starts.
Okay.
The leaves are changing color, and we're all, getting ready to hunker down for like a cold season. So the book we choose for October is uber important, because you know what I mean? So
yeah, I hear you. Okay.
Pressure is on.
I was following you until you said, cooler and leaves changing, because sitting here in Florida, October just means low 90s.
Yeah, and in LA, it's like, and so.
Oh, I forgot about that. Palm trees don't change color. Well,
Yeah.
Leslie and Carissa could feel it.
Yes.
I love the change. That's why I moved away from Florida. Is I like the change in weather. So there was a little bit. I mean, Northern California had 2 seasons, but Colorado
Yeah.
really has 4 seasons. Some of them only last a week, but we have another season. So
Okay, Peter is here,
Hi, Peter.
and Peter would be happy to know how, against Vernon's wishes, I chose the book for next month already.
Well, we can negotiate that too. You know, why has it got to be that book?
We can change it.
I'm
I'm
putting
gonna,
myself in the game.
You mean I bought it? It showed up today, and you're going to change it on me?
no, I'm not going to change it, Vern. We're talking negotiations for October, so everybody has everybody has time to plan. Their strategy on how to negotiate the book that they want to read in October.
Okay.
So, we were going to talk Black Swans until we got a little bit derailed. And now that Peter's here, I want to share screen. And because I've taken on like a really big project and undertaking with the good people at what used to be Progressive Plan and now Advando Americas, I wanted to read a book to help me understand the way that, Advando sees things. So that's like Chris Postel, Peter Ryer, a whole bunch of people that are coming down in September from the Netherlands to the World Petroleum Congress. So this book, can you see it?
Yeah.
I can see it.
First of all, okay. How Big Things Get Done, the surprising factors that determine the fate of every project, from home renovations to space exploration and everything in between. The secrets to successfully planning and delivering ambitious, complex projects on any scale. Nothing is more important than inspiring a big vision that becomes triumphant, new reality. Think of how the Empire State Building went from a sketch to the jewel of New York's skyline in 21 months, or how Apple's iPod went from a project with a single employee to a product launch in 11 months. They're wonderful stories, but most of the big visions turn into nightmares. In fact, no less than 92% of mega projects come in over budget or over schedule, or both. The cost of California's high-speed rail project soared from $33 billion to $100 billion and won't even go where promised. Most more modest endeavors, whether launching a small business, organizing a conference, or just finishing a work project on time, also commonly fail. Why? So that's what caught me.
I'm interested when they say mega projects. Where does the price point of a mega project start?
I think it's $1 billion.
Okay.
$1 billion and over, I think. Or maybe it's into the trillions. Can't remember. But
32
billion sounds more reasonable.
So.
Yeah, like over $1 billion, I think. $1 million projects are super projects, I guess.
Okay.
And then mega projects are over $1 billion. So I don't know. I think Peter will appreciate that, and he might even read and join us.
I'm sure stranger things have happened.
And then
when Benita told me the which one she had landed on as a next book, I ordered it, and I told her when we were in studio before we started that it showed up 20 minutes before we got on.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to choose to read it, I will tell you, as I was telling Benita, that it advertised as at like 300 pages, but it's a heavily researched and annotated book with footnotes and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, it's a 190-page book. So it's not as daunting as, it's not a very daunting book in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
But
It's deceiving though, because it's thicker than you'd think it'd be.
Yep.
And I'm not sure. Yeah, like I wonder how that kind of a book reads on audiobook, Vern. I don't know.
I don't know. How big things get done. I'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah, how big things get done.
Okay.
So I hear, are you getting sick of business books, Vern? Because it's funny you should say that, because I had considered suggesting a fiction that had learnings in it, but I don't know how that would go over with all y'all.
Oh, y'all. Mm.
Speaking Southerner.
Mm.
Well, I'm going to be in San Antonio next month, so I got to start
Practicing.
So I get the
So here's one, since we're digressing from Chris Voss's book that I just read. I don't know if you can see it. It's called Turnaround Artists.
Interesting.
It was pretty highly rated and I enjoyed it. It is a true story told in like a fable way, imparting leadership lessons. So basically the story is this guy who is owns multiple companies and all of that. His father, who owns a restaurant for many, many years, gets ill. And he has a very fraught relationship with his father. Father, very old school, tell employees what they're supposed to do because otherwise they're just lazy. And his management philosophy is the son is very different. So he comes in and runs the restaurant while his father is recuperating, and how he takes their culture and tries to change the culture of the restaurant through a lot of the leadership lessons we've all learned over the course of the years. So it is more, I think, reinforcing than telling, but it is an entertaining way to relate. Because it's a story. You get caught up in the individuals and how they go about their things. The one thing I didn't like about it is at the end of each chapter, there was a little plug for the author selling his, training and consulting stuff.
Oh, okay.
But setting that aside, it's a quick read. It's about leadership, but it's told by way of like a Patrick Lencioni way of telling a story.
That reminds me of the premise of The Bear. I don't know who's watched that show yet, but was on Hulu. It's similar where the brother dies by suicide and he comes back, and his brother comes back to take over this restaurant and completely changes the culture. He's got it's a top shelf like Philly cheesesteak type restaurant. Like everybody comes to it it's called The Beef, and everybody comes to it for these amazing sandwiches they have. But he comes from his brother, this brother comes from like a 5-star Michelin restaurant, and he has a different style of cooking, and everybody's used to that, and it's basically changing this, completely overhauling the culture and bringing a kind of a making it almost more of a business, but at the same time keeping this family. So it was an interesting story. If you get a chance to watch it, I would highly recommend it.
What was it called?
The Bear, like a bear. So I don't know if they have I don't know if there's a book on it. I don't know if it was based off of a screenplay at all, but it might be a good book too. The other one that I'm in the middle of right now is Untamed. So that has a lot of kind of life lessons in it as well too. So, and that's all, it's a autobiography with a lot of life lessons, but she tells it as a story. So that's Gwendolyn.
Cool.
As we talk about, Benita, you brought the question about whether you wanted to change, some of the kinds of books. I like coming to the book club and knowing that I'm gonna walk away having learned something. And that, as for me, as a foundation, works. If you ask me the kind of books that I read, most of them are how-to and self-development and those things around neuroscience and so forth and so on, body language, et cetera, et cetera. Not so much the novels or what may be described as fiction, because I don't know that I would walk away having learned something just listening to something. And one of the things I like about this is I don't have to read the book. I can sit up there and I can listen to you smart people and kind of glean what I need to get, and then thank you very much. You all have a nice day, and I'm done. This is what I learned from my book club. Okay, that seems to work. I like that. But
just so you can say you belong to a book club, right?
Absolutely, I sound so smart. Well, I'm meeting with my book club, and we're reading.
This has got to be the most informal book club anyone's ever belonged to, and I really like it that way.
I have no points of reference. Having this is my first, so it's like, aren't all book clubs like this?
Look at the movie.
No less.
The movie.
No, okay. Not even.
The movie book is about a few women who've had that relationship for like 40 years, and they always had a book club, and really just come to drink and like they don't even chat about the book most of the time. So
that was the last book club. I was invited to one that's not near me, but they were like, "Oh, come to our book club this month." And this was a few years ago, and I went. I actually, before, I'm like, "Well, what's the book? I got to read it." And they're like, "Oh, don't worry. Like, wait, you'll hear about it when you get there." And it really wasn't a book club. That it was more like a game wine club kind of thing, but. To their families, they were saying they were going to book club.
Right.
So
virtually, I can't serve wine or cookies and tea and anything like that. So I've had to make it something different. And so, I mean, what I got out of it and why it all started was during the pandemic, nobody was getting socialization, right? Nobody went anywhere. So a book club was a really good way to get people together. And then I found that in reading these books and then discussing it amongst other people, I got different perspectives. And then I got more out of the book than what I originally would have had I read it alone.
That really ties into that last chapter of the book, though. Like, not knowing what we don't know, like how assumptions prevent us from seeing more. I think that's what a great negotiator understands, that they walk in going, I think I know some stuff, but I really don't know what I don't know. And there's so much more. And curiosity on such a deep level, or in the case of like hostage negotiation, making sure there's a team and other people, their job is just listen to that one and you're going to listen to that person, or because it's exhausting to listen and you can't listen while you're also talking and thinking. And it's just, that's why when it's not life, on the line, what was suggested before, hey, we could take a break and say, if we're negotiating something, like, hey, let's meet again next month, because then I'll have time to absorb what I heard, think more of questions. But the key is accepting, I really don't know what you want. Even if you told me what you want, there's more to it. And always keeping that, like, I don't know there, keeps us asking more until maybe we do get to the bottom of it, so to speak.
Right.
Actually, that sounds pretty good, Leslie. Because I don't know. And as we don't know, we want to try and find out more. Being able to hone the skill of asking good questions. And, you know, some of the things that I've learned, you know, from the book is that was one of the things he did. You know, you ask, well, how am I supposed to do that? And it's such a, on the surface, simple but very profound, that it makes the hostage taker, I don't know. Let me get back to you on how, you know, we're going to do this, and, you know, how am I going to get you your money, and how are we going to feed you? I don't know. I hadn't thought about that. So again, it's being able to ask those very poignant questions, and the person has to think, and that in itself kind of probably throws them off their game. Those questions can do that. So yeah, that's one of the things I will walk away with, being able to ask good questions, which is
And the how question, the how, like, is so critical, because if you asked it like, well, so you think I'm going to do this, don't you? We're not learning anything new. We're asking like a leading question, like we're in a court of law. Like, take the risk and ask the open question, and who knows what the answer will be, and that's okay.
Yeah. But it's just that how, it just throws you off. Yes without a how has no value. I remember reading that. You know, okay, you said yes, so how are you going to do that? Well, I just said yes. You know, well, how are you going to do it? Don't have a clue. So yeah.
The other thing that I thought was key was like taking the time to like create rapport, whatever that means in whatever context you're in. Because I have learned like some of the stuff, like in those early, like, oh, you're getting ready, we're not starting yet, we're having some coffee or water. It just even creates like, oh, all right, well, you were talking about that show you were watching that you found so interesting. Well, I'm going to do the like that. We know that didn't work. You know, maybe it's like Law and Order or something. I've had that before. And I'm like, we're not going to ask those kind of questions. We're going to ask questions where we're really going to learn about each other. So, but it creates like a rapport, like, oh, yeah, all right, well, we both watched that same show. So at least we have something in common, even though it appears as if we're opposites. We're not necessarily opposites. We're more like, we have to humanize it.
Yeah, I would agree.
I didn't get a chance to
humanize it.
I didn't get a chance to read the book, but does he talk anything about, you know, doing that background in negotiations, learning who the person is as a human being before you go into it? Or, you know, if you've ever watched negotiations, you know, people are always like, okay, go to their home, find out about them, ask their family, ask their, you know, learn about them, because then you might find one little thing and you learn who they are psychologically as you're trying to negotiate too. So
actually, you're right. And I've watched different, you know, usually police shows and crime movies and so forth, and they send them to their houses and get to know their people and ask those kind of questions, and they come back armed with certain things. Well, you know, your mother, blah blah blah, and they like, and that throws them off because they're not thinking that they're coming up with that kind of information, and so it kind of like opens the crack for them to be able to establish better rapport.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and no matter what it is that we are negotiating for, the better our rapport, I think probably the better we can work together. Seems fair.
Yeah, you make a good point. I don't know if Brent read the book or if he found this, but there's no such thing as logical, only what matters to someone. That's how Chris Voss summed up the human mindset in one sentence, is that although we all think we're being logical, it's all emotion driven.
Mm-hmm. It's funny when you actually get somebody to, I mean, and the world we live in is about getting people to change their minds. I mean, so it seems like it's gotten harder and harder, but when you find that one root of the problem, like, why did you come to that decision in the first place? Understanding who somebody is and why they decided that that's, you know, that's why they're steadfast on a no, you know, back it up, learn who they were as a person. It's like, oh, well, this is why you're no on this, but did you know this, or did you know that? Or get them to even ask the questions like, well, what about this? And what about that? And suddenly, you know, they start to develop their own answers or even change their thinking on it. But sometimes it takes digging deep too to understand who they are.
Chris, it's interesting. As I was listening to you, I heard two questions. How did you come to that conclusion, and why did you come to that conclusion? And both have very significant different meanings in terms of how a person is going to be perceiving it. Why means that they're going to have to justify their position. And that makes it kind of argumentative, potentially.
Yeah. Or defensive.
You can become very defensive.
Yeah.
And then how did you come to that conclusion is a totally different situation, because it's no longer something that is going to be argumentative. It is going to be something that's going to ask you, what were the steps that you took to come to that conclusion? And it's one of the things that I've learned, and I probably did learn it from Chris's book, the how and the why. They sound so similar. You would think you're asking almost the same thing, but they're viewed differently, very differently. You know, why did you come up with that? Now I'm defensive. I got to justify what I'm saying. How did I come up with that? Well, this was my process in thinking for me to come to that conclusion. It's less what do I want to say?
It's less like conflict and aggressive to remove the why.
It does.
If we want to talk about our why, our purpose in life, that sounds positive. But once we use the word why at the beginning of a sentence, especially in a negotiation where people already feel like it's a battle, you're perpetuating that feeling of battle, that they have to defend themselves and they're not going to answer.
Yeah.
But when you change it to how, all of a sudden, like the information.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not always that magical that it's that quick, but more often the information will be dumped out, but not with the why. They'll be like, well, because I need that. Because we've always done it this way.
You don't want to make someone defensive, because then that's argumentative. You know, and so, you know, one of the other things he talks about too, and why the how questions are so powerful is, you know, we think that the person who's talking is in control. But as he points out, the person who's listening is the one who's in control. And if you're asking how questions, you're getting the other person to talk. And as they're talking, you're learning more and more about how you can resolve the situation in the best way. And so it's another reason why, you know, how questions are so useful. It's non-defensive, but it also gets the other person talking.
How questions help you build bridges with the other person. And you're right about the why, Hal. It's like, now I have to defend what I've come up with, and that puts me on the defensive, and I've got a totally different attitude now. How? Well, I can tell you how I came up to that conclusion. So in order to be able to get information, you've got to be able to know when to ask those kinds of questions. What question is going to most suit your needs?
And I think, you know, as you go down the whole list of the reporter type questions, who, what, where, when, why, and how, as long as you park the why questions, you can ask any of those, because it gets the person talking in a non-confrontational way.
Yes.
Well, where would you like that to happen? Not why would you like that to happen? You know,
Mm-hmm. When would you
when
like
would
that
be
to
the
happen?
best time to get, you're negotiating hostages and you get them talking about, I'm sure everybody's tired and hungry. We need to get you some food. What type of food would you like us to get? When would be the best time for you to deliver that? How and they make some unreasonable demand. How are we going to do that?
Yeah.
But you don't ask, well, why were you thinking that people wouldn't get hungry, you dumbass, or whatever, because that's how it's going to be interpreted as soon as you ask the why question.
How did you come to the conclusion that something in particular was happening? Okay, so you had a plan, your plan didn't work. All right, so now you got hostages. So what are you looking for? Really? And how were you thinking you were going to do that? Because we can't just let you go. We have to work something out here. We want to work out something that's going to work for all concerned. You, the people that you're holding hostage, and law enforcement. And we can't just let you go. So what would you like? Knowing that we can't just let you go, what would you like? Well, I want a plane ticket to Guatemala, and just I want to get out of here. At the uppermost part of my mind, I want to get out alive. All right, that's like my number one concern. I want to get out alive. The money all of a sudden takes a back seat. I'd hope for money, but I could work with my life right now. We can talk about that. I want to get out alive. And police say, okay, we can certainly talk about that. We certainly don't want to kill you. We want you to come out alive. And we want the hostages to be healthy. We want them, but it's how we're going back and forth on this. But you keep asking the kind of questions that drill down, and build rapport. We want to give you this. We're going to give you that. But but why do you want it? It's like asking, why did you rob the bank?
So you must have really liked the psychological aspect behind the book, Vern.
For some reason,
Yeah.
it caught my rib. It's for me, Benita, and you will know, it's all about the mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's what we think, why we think it. It's all about the mind. And that has just led me to pools of information about human behavior and relationships that it's fascinating, because all we want to be able to do oftentimes is we want to be able to persuade people to do the things we want them to do.
Mm-hmm.
So now, how can we do that? What's it going to take? And it kind of goes from there. So yeah, I have more than a passing interest in psychology, although I'm not a person who has a degree in psychology, but I do like to understand about the mind, because that's what I'm talking to my clients about. Where you are where you are because of what you think and believe.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of drills down into a whole nother thing about, well, why do I think the way that I do? And it hasn't been really serving me that well, but I can't change it. And well, maybe you can. Let's talk about the possibilities. If you could change it, how would you change it? What would you like to see it change to? And you just kind of continue to drill down to find out. And it's just fascinating to me. But yeah.
It's consistent with executive coaching and people who are good at it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Vern? You know it as well as anybody. You don't tell. You ask good questions to get the other person to get to the place they need to get to on their own, so it's their own idea.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you start asking someone as a coach why questions, you're getting them defensive. But if you ask them all the other types of questions, you just keep them talking and keep them getting them to their own answer.
the Socratic method of learning.
Yep.
Just keep asking enough questions, and it's like light comes on. It's like, oh shit, damn, yeah, and once it becomes self-discovery, that makes it even more value than me telling you what it is, because you discovered it.
Yep.
And when I'm talking with my clients and they start looking at the changes that are taking place in their life, I said, first of all, we know I didn't do it. I was a guide, but I didn't tell you. And what you got is inside your head. You came up with it. I just kind of, asked you some questions so that you could come up with some solutions, and you start thinking differently. And that's where people start making the really good decisions about what they want to do. So yeah, it's always fascinating in terms of the mind, but it is. I will hold fast and true to that. It's all about the mind. It's what we think and what we believe.
Mm-hmm.
And the subconscious is just why do we think those kinds of things? And that's what we were raised for. That's how we were raised. You start asking people questions about this, and you start figuring out what it was that you were told that became a part of your belief system that you have dragged through the years to where you are right now. And there's some things I know for me that just, I look back at it and I was like, damn. There were some things I was told, I just held on to it and believed it all the way through life. But now I'm realizing that that particular belief no longer serves me. But what am I going to do? I mean, that's how I always have been doing it. So how am I going to change it? So, that's what's fascinating to me. And when I listen to you all, I just, I glean as much information as I can about understanding how people think the way they do, why they do. And it's enjoyable. It's a learning situation for me. And I listen to, just how you all think about things and the questions you come up with. And it's like, okay, I got it.
Yeah, we're a pretty good cross section of society, right?
I would like to think so. I would like to think. And we have some very interesting personalities.
Yeah, and we all come from different disciplines. So you have to come
absolutely
at it from like I don't know, just to steal like a word that I got from one of the podcasts I listened to, like a polymathic, multidisciplinary viewpoint. You have to be able to see it from all sides. Yeah. So there you have it from Hal Guerin, auditor extraordinaire, chief executive auditor.
Oh yeah. Go Hal.
Carissa
Well,
Bilster.
I will do that. Why did you say that?
And you got to throw some whys in there, Hal.
Yeah.
Otherwise we
Why
start
in the world would you say
getting
that?
lazy. All right. So you got to put some people on the defensive and kind of mix it up and stir it up and see what comes of it. So yeah, well, why do you think that way?
He's an author, a leader, a mentor to many. Carissa is a leader, and she's on this I feel like it's an exploration, and she's sharp as a whip, and she asks good questions and forces me to think differently too. Vernon Webb, like as an executive coach, he's helped me grow so much, and in so little time. I'm basically during my long and drawn out divorce, Vern was able to coach me professionally so that I could still grow and learn at the same time I was going through something really, life altering.
Dramatic.
Yeah. Leslie, wow, like so grateful to have met the conflict strategist and like the conflict management top voice on LinkedIn and have her part of a book club. Like just through little conversations that we have offline, I've been able to like make some decisions that are pretty critical to like how my recovery goes. So I'm really grateful. I don't know if like but this virtual book club is not mandatory. People just show up when they have time. And for 120 weeks now, I've not had to show up alone. So I'm so grateful for these people. And I'm grateful for the audience. If you're watching this on replay, please like tell us, say hi so we know that you were there. And in 2 weeks' time from now, we're going to start our new book. And as soon as I get my book, I'll post it, but maybe Hal will post it first so that people know which book it is. And then we got things to do for October, Vern. We got to get it. We're gonna start the negotiations in the LinkedIn group. In the LinkedIn group, everyone is in, and then
Come up with a couple of books. Let me cut you off, Benita, because first of all, and I think that everyone will agree, we're only here because of you.
Aw.
Yeah, I mean that just is what it is. We are here because you lead us. You're here, well, and that's why we have this forum to share ideas and to interact with each other and to grow, because you brought us all together. So, for that, I am very, very thankful.
That's nice.
And kudos
So
to you.
grateful.
Mhm.
Perfect words. Grateful for the group.
Yeah. So, it's a great place to be. It really is. Just the personalities, and of course you got Rob when he pops in and he throws in his spin, and it's like, okay. And you got going from Rob to Hal, it's like, it's just back and forth and around. It's just like just a great group of people. I enjoy this. It probably is one of the best kept secrets on LinkedIn. It really is. Because we like who we like, and we're spending time with the people that we like. Maybe we'll let you in, but we can't promise anything.
Okay.
Because you guys are special. Yeah.
We're gonna continue this ingratiation offline. I'm gonna end the show and stay in the studio if you would like, and we'll see the audience in 2 weeks' time on August 7th, I think it is, or September 7th, I think it is.
Okay. Bye.